What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And my glowing, effervescent friend here, don't hate her because she's beautiful, and especially don't hate her because she's involved with taxes. But it's my new friend, Morgan Q. Anderson. Hello, Morgan.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on here. We're going to entertain everybody, even though you
Yes,
said
we
that three-letter word that make people shiver.
are.
Tax. The only worst
Oh,
one
I
is
thought you meant IRS.
IRS.
Well, I'm gonna read. See, we're already having fun. All right.
I know, I know.
Taxes are
Stick
not
with us,
scary.
people. I promise this is going to be entertaining.
Yeah, taxes are
Yeah.
not scary, people. Morgan is scary, but taxes are not scary.
Only if I take you to the gun show.
Got some guns. Holy crap. You got a permit for those? Are those legal in Utah?
Only on every other Friday and Saturday.
All right, I'm not touching that one. So, okay, well, we're sliding fast. We've already started. So I gotta read your bio so people
Go
know who I'm
for it,
talking to. Okay. All right,
please.
everybody. I'm not gonna edit any of this. This is too much fun. All right, everybody. So today's guest is Morgan Q. Anderson, EA, has been relentlessly representing her clients before the IRS, state tax agency, for over 25 years. During that time, Morgan has resolved thousands of clients' personal and business tax debt issues for income, payroll, and state taxes. To say that Morgan has handled pretty much any tax debt problem you can imagine is an understatement. Her experience and knowledge have led her to publishing a book called Tax Debt Rule Number One: There's Always a Solution, that individuals and tax professionals can use as a guide for identifying where they are in the tax debt collection process and the steps they can begin to take to move towards a resolution. And the first step you need to take is to call Morgan Q. Anderson. Hello, Morgan Q. Anderson.
Hello, hello. Gosh, what a wonderful introduction.
You
I'm
wrote
ex
it.
I,
All I do is read.
uh-uh. No,
No,
my
where'd that?
marketing agent wrote it.
See, you can't be honest because you work with the IRS. Stop being honest, or we won't trust
Ah,
that you handle the IRS issue.
sorry. You get full transparency with me. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a tax nerd. Okay.
All right. Well, I've squirreled completely away because I don't have anything to talk about anymore, but I want to hear from you. But
Mm,
before we get started, this is the What If You Could podcast. So I do have one question and one question only. And that question is, it doesn't have to be about taxes. It could be about Utah. It could be about fishing. It could be about anything. But if you had in your life or something coming up, what do you have a what if you could moment or what if you could thought you'd love to share with our folks?
Oh, you know, I I would have to say it would that we could wave a magic wand and everybody would bring common sense back to the world again. Oh, how's that answer?
Wow.
Yeah, I know, kind of a heavy one, right?
Well, I mean, have you been here very long? I mean, you see what's going on with
Mm.
the cuckoo cray cray town that we
That's
live
why I
in?
say it, right? And it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, just people just don't think anymore.
Mm-mm.
And if everybody just put a little bit more thought into their day, into their impact in the world that we're all in, we would be in a much different place.
That's a great thought. And not podcasts because I love podcasts. I love it in listening to podcasts. And you could choose what you want to listen to. But imagine if everyone turned off the media the TVs, the media, negative social media stuff for 30 days, and did a 30-day detox
Yeah,
and started calling friends or talking to each other or going out and actually not snickering at someone who maybe looks like they are on the other side. What a trip, right? We would all of a
right.
sudden get along. Like the great Rodney King said, why can't we all just get along? It's just bizarre. He was
I
brilliant.
agree. I agree. Well, and
He was,
that's why I'm saying, I think the idea of detoxing for 30 days is fabulous. I was watching an interview with Robert Plant, right?
I
And
love Robert Plant. I mean, in fact, a lot
amazing.
of people say when I sing, I sound just like Robert Plant. Seriously. When
Really?
I do Kashmir, forget about it. Forget it.
Oh,
People just light candles in the
God,
audience.
you hear the entrance to that song and you just kind of start getting pumped up, you know?
Right? I could hear it now, right? When you said
Yeah.
that, I could hear it
Yes.
now.
Yes. Yes. And he said he attributed a lot of his creativity to being bored. And then I saw an interview with the lead singer of The Who, Daltrey, and he said, I feel bad for kids these days. They've always got a device in front of them, right? They're always being entertained by some electronic bit. They're never bored. And if you're not bored, you miss out on so much. So here you have two amazing rock legends, right? Sharing the fact that they are who they are because they didn't have the distractions that we have now in our days, in our time of living. And it makes you wonder, maybe if we go back to hey, every place is closed on Sundays other than the market and the gas station, right?
Mhm.
People would
Well,
maybe
just
stay home
prepare.
and
Go to the
focus,
market and the
right?
gas station on a day knowing they're going to be closed on Sunday. Just be
Right. Yeah,
prepared
I agree. I
and
agree. It's an
think about
interesting idea.
yeah, and think about the things that they wrote. Like if you just
Yeah,
don't listen to Stairway to Heaven or Blue Man by the Who or like I said Cashmere, but if you just read it, right, you won't be able to not hear the music. But if you just
right,
read, you
right.
go, dude, wherever your head was when you wrote that
Hmm.
was a great place. But you
Yeah,
don't get to that place if your head is constantly stimulated by crap.
absolutely. I completely agree. But I think more people are starting to unplug like that. I
My
really do.
son, my son just told me yesterday. I go, dude, did you get that thing I forwarded to you? And he goes, no, man, I'm totally off social media. I said, what? He goes, yeah, I put an app on my phone that completely cleared all my social media, shut it off, don't have access to it, can't get bleeps, boom, shoots, nothing. He's totally off social media. And I
Wow.
go, wow, bro, that's crazy. That's awesome. He wasn't really a big social media guy, anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just said, I'm off it for right now. I just kind of want to completely get off it because my son's 30. How old is Chris?
Chris,
He's
if
going to
you're
be 30.
listening, he apologizes.
He's going to be 32. He's going to be 32. He's
Yeah,
my
good
partner
for
in the real
him.
estate company. But yeah, he's just like, and I think, like you said, I think a lot of people like, you know what? I the media really let me down on both sides. So much stuff let me down. I'm finding out so many things that they said were true or not. I'm just kind of done with it, right?
Yeah. I feel that way about professional sports. I grew up in the St. Louis area, so our summers were filled with
Cardinals.
Cardinal baseball, right?
Oh, yeah.
My dad, my grandparents, um, and I used to be a diehard. And the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, I can read the stats. If I sit here and watch the game, it's not going to impact the outcome. Always root for them in the World Series when they can get their pitching staff and their pitching bench in order again.
I love the Cardinals. I've
I
actually
did
been
too.
to both stadiums. I've been to old
Oh,
Cardinal Stadium and I've been to the new Cardinal
yeah.
Stadium. I
Old
love the
Bush and New Bush.
yeah, yeah. And I've been an
Yeah.
Angels LA Angels. I hate they're not the LA Angels. I've been in a lot I've been an Angels fan for over 50 years. I grew up right by the Big A and
Wow.
but you're right. And it's like you don't really want to say to professional athletes, "Hey, shut up and play." Because they've got every
Mm,
right to voice their opinion as anybody else. But my challenge with it is, dude, you're a famous person. At any time, you can call a press conference. You've got a million followers on Twitter and all this other crap, right? You
right.
can make yourself known. You can make your thoughts heard massively, way more than any normal people. Why do you have to do it during the game,
Yeah. Yeah, and not
right?
only that, but I think more of the normal citizen is realizing there's a disconnect, right? Somebody who has a $5 million contract a year has very different realities in their life than somebody who's working a 9 to 5 job, living paycheck to paycheck. The realities are so skewed with these athletes and celebrities and all these people who like to wax poetic about their viewpoint, but your viewpoint from a millionaire position versus somebody making 80,000 a year, very different. Very different. And people are paying attention more to that. They're losing the idol aspect.
Yeah, I think that's really happening with celebrities. I mean, I've never been a celebrity guy, you know. I
Hmm.
mean, I've never. I waited tables in a really fancy restaurant here in the desert where all the celebrities used to go, you know, in the 80s when I worked there. And I just was never, I was like, yeah, whatever. You know, they're whatever. I've just never been a celebrity guy. But I think now more than ever, there really aren't any celebrities. I mean, there's not like the old movie stars or someone that you just
Yeah.
go, oh, wow, they're so elegant or, whatever, right?
The
I mean, it
Frank
seems like,
Sinatra era, yeah, it's gone.
yeah,
It's gone.
Cary Grant, Frank Sinatra, some of these people who were just and now there's just everybody's a celebrity. I mean, you
Right.
could be a girl on TikTok or a guy on TikTok doing stupid stuff with a cat, and you get 5 million views. You're a celebrity, right? It's like, what is
I know.
celebrity anymore?
It's strange times. It's different from anything that I've been around growing up. We've hit a different plateau, and I think it's a lot of people are kind of waking up to what truly is important in life versus what is a distraction to keep you from focusing on yourself and your immediate priorities.
Yeah. Well, I think one of our biggest priorities is paying taxes, right?
Oh, nice segue.
Right?
Nice
That
segue.
was it.
I
We
love that,
call that a
Gary. That's
segue
awesome.
in the business. All right. In the business, we call that a segue.
Yeah, that's a nice way
I'm a
to
highly trained
circle back
professional.
around.
Or a
Ah,
callback. Don't they call it a
yeah,
callback? I don't know.
yeah.
Whatever.
Taxes.
But
Okay.
but all right. So Mark, you're here to talk to us about taxes, and it's
Hmm.
great timing because unfortunately, what in a couple days
Yeah.
we're all going to start getting our W-2s and our 1099s received
Yep.
in the mail, and we're going to open them and cry, and then
Right.
we're going to realize, well, I don't have any money to pay these taxes. You know, and so we're going to call Morgan. And then what's Morgan going to do? I mean,
Yeah.
what do you actually? So how big is the tax code? Like, is it in like five
Oh,
million words and 20,000 pages? How big is the tax code? Do you even know?
millions of pages. Millions of
Millions, right?
pages. And so here's something that a lot of people can't don't understand because they don't have exposure to it. All of the tax codes, everything that we operate by as our guiding points, right? With this big annual obligation and every obligation we have at the federal level, everything is passed by Congress. So first and foremost, that there was that whole big movement defund the IRS. And every politician operates on the platform of we're going to get rid of the IRS. Well, the IRS really is in a crappy situation. They have to act upon the rules that Congress passes. So it's not like the IRS just makes up all of this tax code and says, well, we're going to really put the screws to the American citizen by, you know, it all starts with Congress. So whenever you hear a politician, jumping on the defund the IRS bandwagon, know that they're full of garbage first and foremost. We pay taxes at a federal level to fund everything you see around you. Our infrastructure, right? Our highway systems. Where do you think that money comes from? It comes from tax dollars. Same thing, national defense, right? There's a lot kicking up right now with China and Russia, and people are like, are we on the brink of World War III? Or are we not? All of our planes, our military, every bullet and gun is funded with taxpayer dollars. Social Security that your grandmother or your mother receives, it's through the tax system. Public schools, all of our government provided healthcare, all of that comes from tax dollars. So my encouraging message to people is if you don't like the way the tax dollars are being spent, and I'm the first one to say our government has been absolutely irresponsible with the way they spend every dollar that we're all putting into the kitty, right? Get involved at your local level. Go the federal level, the national level, right? It's really hard to have an impact, but you can start in your neighborhood. Start with your city. Attend city council meetings. Watch how they're saying they're earmarking money to be spent in the coming year. And if you've gotten a problem with it, raise your voice. Our government is set up so that we should have a voice, but it starts locally before you can move up the chain of command, so to speak. How you like that bouncing ball?
What a load of garbage that was. Um,
Ah!
well, first of all, our son did run for city council.
Oh,
Um,
really?
our family has always been very involved with charities, foundations, local things, YMCA,
That's wonderful.
raising money for charities, being on boards and stuff like that. But before my wife passed, she was on every stinking every charity, every they just like,
Hmm.
oh, we got to get April on here because she just got stuff done. And then our son Chris ran for. They actually came to him and said, "Hey man, why don't you run for city council?" He goes, "I'm not going to run for city council." He's 31 years old. He's like, I don't know. And they pushed him, and he ran against the incumbent mayor. He lost by 96 votes. I mean, he almost. Here's a kid who had no clue running against the mayor for the
Right,
city council seat and almost took it. But in that, he learned a lot about how the city functions, budgets. He had to meet with a lot of people to
right.
get their endorsements and stuff. Um, so yeah, it does have to start local. Same thing with school boards. I mean, we're not going to fix our
Yeah,
schools by yelling at the congressmen and the senators. They're not going to fix our local schools. It's just
nope,
not going to happen. So, um, and I agree that we do have to pay taxes. I mean, we have to pay taxes to get stuff done because the government doesn't earn money. They don't sell anything. They don't make
right.
anything. They just create. What do you think of a flat tax?
You
I know
know,
that screws your business,
no,
kind of.
not necessarily, actually, because no matter what kind of tax system we're on, there's always going to be people who can't pay it, right? So my experience in my funky little corner of the tax world is always going to be here as long as third parties, as long as individuals and third parties have to hold the tax and pay it over to the federal or state government. Sales tax, don't get me started. Small business owners, that's the first place they borrow money when things get tight. Oh, I'll catch up next month. I'll
Yeah.
catch up next quarter. And before you know it, there's a $50,000 unpaid tax. Um, but I firmly believe that if everybody were paying a flat rate, everybody would pay their fair share. right? If you are, if your earnings are $3 million or 300,000 or 30,000, you pay the same percentage. The idea is great. The hard part that we have is all of the people who donate to our politicians love their deductions. They love being able to say, oh, wait, wait, wait. I donated $50,000 to Muscular Dystrophy Foundation, right? I'm going to deduct that from my taxable income. By allowing that to happen, there's a lot of money that goes to a lot of great places, right? A lot of donations. We all have these charitable foundations clamoring for our money right now as a result of the natural disasters. In the Carolinas with Helene, in California right now with the wildfires. Um, you're always getting some type of solicitation in the mail. Hey, give your money here. It's a tax deductible donation. So big donors who support our politicians love their deductions. And for that reason, I don't think we'll ever get to a point where it's a flat tax. I just don't see it ever transitioning to that.
Yeah, April was the queen of fundraisers, boy.
Was
When
she?
they wanted fundraising, they'd call my past wife, and that Colombian would just go and just put the screws to you, man. She would
Oh,
get money.
yeah.
She could, is a great fundraiser, but it was for a good
That's
cause. But the
wonderful.
thing is,
Right.
at what point do we just go, you know what? I'm gonna put my name on that hospital and give them $100 million to build that wing because I can.
Right.
Whether I'm gonna write it off or not. I'm gonna donate $50 to whatever because I can and I want to. I don't care about because I, uh, you know, a VAT tax and then the value added tax and then
Hmm.
the flat tax, will generate a lot of income. And I do like that it's fair. Like you said, 30,000, 300,000, 3 million bucks, whatever. If you buy a Bentley and you pay $50,000 in taxes buying that thing, or you buy a used jalopy and you pay $75 taxes on that thing, it's fair,
Right.
right?
Right.
But I think what else that does is it removes the power balance from I make $5 million a year.
Hmm.
I know you're impressed. A lot of people are. So I go to my tax attorney
Hmm.
and my 7 CPAs and all of my accountants, and then I make sure I get every massive deduction. So I pay a
Right.
5% tax basis. My neighbor makes $38,000 and he pays 10% of his income because
Right.
he doesn't have the advantage that I have to be able to pay to judge the system.
Sure.
So if we took the 89 million pages in the tax code and maybe took that tax code down to 100 pages of taxes, it'd make your job easier, my job easier, and would that make the system more fair?
I think it would make it fair from one standpoint, but then what would end up happening, and this sounds kind of self-serving for people who do have the resources to leverage the tax code. Think of all the places that people do donate money, right? If no matter how much money you make, you're only going to have to pay, let's say 15% to the feds, no matter what. Would you be as inclined to donate that money to the charities or to put your name on that hospital wing? Maybe, maybe not. And
Maybe,
I
maybe not.
I think that's just the human conscience, right?
So what if
So,
the guy who runs the Red Cross only made $100,000 a year instead of $5 million a year? Maybe,
yeah,
maybe,
right.
maybe philanthropy needs to go in a lot of direct. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
no,
Finish your
no,
thought.
it's
But you're
I
but
I
you're
love
right.
this
Yeah, maybe people
conversation.
don't donate, right?
Right. Right. And then where would those charities make up the money that's lost from inspired donations coming to them? Right? They'd turn to the government. The government would say, well, we only have 15% from every taxpayer, and that money is accounted for. We've actually balanced our budget at the federal level. Whew, wouldn't that be a day? But that money's all accounted for. So we don't have the money to give you foundation. I think
But
that
I'm a
we would they
super
would
rich
lose
guy.
out,
So I'm a rich, super rich guy. I make my $5 million a year, and I used to
right?
give $50,000 because I could write it off.
Hmm.
But now that the tax base is so much lower, and I'm able to not pay all these accountants and all these attorneys, and I don't have to constantly work the system to not pay much money in taxes, I still have that $50,000, and I
Right.
can give that actually because I want to, not
But
because
you're a
I'm
good
trying to.
person.
What's
So
that?
that you're a good person,
No, I'm
right?
not.
So,
I'm not
oh,
even close. And I don't even have
give
5
me
million.
a break. Yes, you are. No, but think about it this way, right? There are a lot of selfish people in our society. There really are. And if it didn't have some type of back end benefit to them, would they be as giving? I don't think so. I really don't. And not to diss the people who are like, yes, all I am an altruistic human being. I care about animals. I care about other people. I love giving my money. Tend to be that way. Um, but there are a lot of people who are very self-absorbed who would not. If their tax attorney weren't saying, hey, we need to find a place to make some donations so you hit this next threshold to lower your tax, would they do it? I don't know. I don't know. We can't get people for some reason to put shopping carts into cart corrals in the parking lots at the grocery store. Do you think they're really going to give money if it doesn't benefit them in some way or another? I mean, this sounds so ugly and kind of an ugly turn for the conversation, but you would
No, it's
hope.
not ugly at all. When you start out talking about the IRS,
Yeah,
it's only uphill from there.
I deserve this conversation.
But yes, it drives me
Oh,
nuts that
but it,
people won't return their cart. It drives me nuts. I
oh, me
return my car.
too.
I'll walk a block to return the stupid thing.
Yep. But so many people won't. There were some celebrities, we're right in the height of these LA fires. And there were some celebrities that got roasted on social media for saying, we appreciate your donations, but if you wouldn't give it to a friend, don't give it to us because we're getting a lot of trash in the donation bins. And I saw that these celebrities are getting roasted for saying that. And I see both sides, like people who have lost everything, you want them to have dignity. If they're coming in and saying, "Hey, I need some shirts for my back because everything went up in flames." But and at that point, how picky are you? But also I can see the viewpoint of I don't want stuff that's stained and got holes in it. These people lost everything. Give them some dignity and pass them something that you would be okay wearing.
And you get a tax write-off.
Tax write-off. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, we're in a very funky place, I feel like, in society as a whole. And I don't know if that leverage for reducing your tax burden wasn't there, would people give as much as they do now?
Yeah. It's
I don't know.
it's definitely a thing. But you look back before there was massive taxes at the Carnegies and the Mellons and some of these very, very, very the Vanderbilt, some of these very,
Hmm.
very generationally wealth people, and they gave a lot of stuff. I mean, Andrew
Yes,
Carnegie
they did.
built, hundreds of libraries,
Hmm.
hospitals, things like that. He didn't do it for a tax write-off. He did it
No.
because that's what he wanted to do. Half my life I'm going to earn all this money, and the other half of my life I'm going to give it all away. But I digress. So, okay, so I'm sitting there. I haven't paid taxes for 2 years.
Hmm.
I get my next 1099, and I'm like, I couldn't have made this much money. There's no way I
Right.
made this money. And where did it go? And holy cow. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm 2 years back. I'm starting to get love letters from the federal government that says, oh, by the way, we're going to start pulling out your toenails one at a time until you give us our money.
Right.
Um, and most of the time we just shut down, put that stuff in the trash and go, I'm not going to pay attention to it because I
Yep.
don't know what to do, right?
Right.
So when that starts happening, And it's for some reason, although these are supposed to be public employees and public servants, and they're supposed to be on our side, right? They're just trying to get the money to help pay for all of our, aircraft carriers and stuff, like you said, and
Right.
give the money to Ukraine and stuff. But
Had to slide that dig in there.
no, I didn't say anything.
Justifiably.
I didn't say anything.
Uh,
But so, why are we so afraid of the
mm,
IRS? Why is everybody so afraid of the IRS? Why, Morgan?
well, it's on purpose, first of all, right? No,
That's good to know.
seriously, the IRS and the tax agencies have done a very good job of creating this mental image for all of us, right? Don't mess with the IRS or we're coming after you. And I laugh about this in my book. Everybody has this mental picture when they get a love note, as you called it, which I call it that all the time. I love that. When you get a bill from the IRS and you're laying in bed that night and you're processing the day and you're like, crap, I have this $80,000 bill with the IRS I've got to deal with. And you start going through these what ifs in your mind. People undoubtedly have this fear that some guy's gonna bang on their front door, right? A guy in like an overcoat with a fedora and a gun and a badge. You owe us money. I'm taking your firstborn, right? Like that is the mental image. And they do it on purpose because, believe it or not, our tax system is considered a voluntarily reported system. And they call it that because we don't have to make an appointment at the local federal office every year, disclose all of our financial activities, and ask them, how much do I owe you? We calculate it ourselves and self-report, which is where the voluntary part comes in. And we say, okay, here's everything that happened with me for the prior year. Here's how much I owe in tax. Here's how much I had withheld from all my activities. Here's how much you owe me back, or I owe you. And because they needed to find a way to have people comply, they created intentionally this mental image of don't mess with us or else we're going to show up at your front door. Does it happen? No. And in the last few years, they used to, if you had a debt large enough, they would assign a local agent to your case and they would come and knock on your door or show up at your office and say, my name is Revenue Officer such and such. Here's my business card. You owe money. We need to figure out a solution to it. And that's maybe a nicer way they'd say it. But recently, because of the threat of bodily harm, the IRS has put provisions in place, and most states have followed suit as well, saying we're not going to put our agents in harm's way. Their initial communication to you, once they're assigned to your case, is going to be in writing. Once that letter has delivered, then they will call you. And if you don't respond through a series of notices and through a series of phone calls, we have the right to take collection action by garnishing wages, garnishing income sources, or levying them, and eventually taking bank accounts and tapping assets to get the debt paid in full.
Well, first of all, now that these guys carry guns, the threat is kind of on the other side. They carry guns.
No,
IRS carries
that
guns.
is the criminal level. So
They are
at the
all criminal.
federal level, at the federal level, your local revenue officer will not be carrying a gun.
And I want to know why you said we when you were talking about the IRS. What's going on, Morgan? Don't
No,
you,
no,
are
no.
you
I
on
was
the
talking about
inside?
from
Are
their
you a plant?
standpoint. No, yeah, right.
Okay, so this is the
No.
scary part. Okay.
Okay. So, yes,
All the scenario that you just said.
uh-huh.
Okay. We get the love letters, then we get the calls, and we don't know what to do. All right. We
Hmm.
still don't know what to do because no matter how nice the letters are worded or how nice the call is, I'm revenue agent so and so from the IRS. Please return the call.
Right.
Um, a lot of people are going to be worried. So you can't go
Absolutely.
to H&R Block with those letters, right? And you can't go to
No.
Bob's tax guy with those letters, right? So how do people find a professional like yourself that they know they could trust to help walk them through what is a really hairy and scary situation for most people?
Right. First things first, I would reach out to your CPA or your EA, whomever you work with on an annual basis, somebody who has insight into your financial condition, and say, okay, I got contacted by the IRS. Same thing with audits, right? Audits, it can be some random mismatch of information between what's reported to the federal government and the states and what you report on your tax return. Contact your tax professional first and foremost. If it's a low enough debt, odds are they can help you with it themselves. I have a master class people can access that will walk you through start to finish and asking to reduce how much you actually end up having to pay back. If it is, I would say above 25, $30,000 for income tax or above 10 or 15,000 in sales tax or payroll tax, you want somebody who does like what I do. All I do is handle tax debt, which means I am very experienced and very skilled at navigating through the labyrinth that you have to go through when you've got a tax debt situation. You want to stay ahead of it. So you want somebody who is an expert at knowing everything there is to know about handling tax debts and getting them to a solution.
So my tax guy, Louis the Liar, he handles he handles my taxes, right?
Okay.
I just give him all my made up stuff. Is this being recorded? Oh shit. Okay, I give him all my made up stuff, and then he takes the made up stuff and makes taxes and uses
Oh,
every angle. He's so slimy and greasy. I love him. He's almost as bad as Gavin Newsom in the greasy sliminess. And so, did I say, is this being recorded?
because he
And so
uses much hair gel though too.
oh,
That's a
luckily,
good.
luckily my guy doesn't have hair, because I would be afraid he'd like light on fire, like Gavin. Like, don't put Gavin close to a
Oh,
match or any flames. He's gonna implode. Is this being recorded? Um,
yeah.
so, so he turns it in, right? I don't know
Mhm.
what's in this. Who actually goes through the tax return
Ah,
and goes, listen, Louis, what is this third child? I don't have a third. I don't even have any kids. What's in here?
right,
And then we get in trouble. So
right.
then we get a bunch of tax debt. Now we call you. All
Okay,
right. So I call Morgan and go, look, Morg, this is like 3 years in a row I haven't paid these taxes.
right.
The letters have gotten less loving and less caring. I'm getting phone calls. I'm scared to death, and I contact you. What does Morgan do?
First thing we do is an investigation. We file power of attorney. We call the IRS and say, I need some breathing room on this. We're working on a solution. We pull all of their data and then we sit down with you and say, okay, ignore what Louis the Liar put on your tax return. Let's talk about what you look like financially. Okay. Because you could owe $50 million to the IRS, but if we can prove you can only pay $500 a month, they have to accept it. Now,
Wow.
here's something that a lot of people don't know. When a tax debt is
Are
recorded
you going to tell us a
with
secret
the
now, right
IRS,
now?
I am. Pay attention. Ding,
All
ding,
right, everybody.
ding. All right. When a tax debt is recorded on your tax account, it starts a clock ticking. The IRS only has 10 years to collect on a debt once it is recorded on your tax account. So keep that in mind, right? You owe $5 million to the IRS. You've lost your business. You've lost everything. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You've got five mouths to feed. It's dicey whether you have enough groceries to last the week. We prove IRS they can only pay $100 a month. Without a shadow of a doubt, we disclose everything because they will look at it through a microscope, right? You better be comfortable with having them look up your skirt because they're going to look at everything. But when they do that and we prove it, they say, okay, you can only pay $100 a month. And at the end of the collection time period, the debt gets written off. The lien gets released, you're on your way.
Now, I'm over 60, so I've had a couple of colonoscopies, and they were much more enjoyable than last time I dealt with the IRS. But
Hmm.
so here's the deal, though. Um, a lot of people, especially like after 2008, 2009, 2010, did lose everything.
Hmm.
And then they have to prove that. But what if somehow people were able to hold on to their home, right? It's like I had to give up my car, my bank accounts, my business. I'm now waiting tables, but I was able to keep my home. And
Hmm.
now I have equity after fighting all these years to make it from 2010. I've got this equity that's all I have. I don't have retirement. I don't have anything. Can that IRS force you to sell your home and take that money?
Well, and this is where having somebody like me who's experienced at knowing how to push back on the IRS is worth their weight in gold. Okay. For this situation, what I would do is say, okay, let's just toss some numbers around. You owe 250,000 to the IRS for unpaid income tax. Okay. You've lost everything except for your home. You're working two jobs to make ends meet. You have 100,000 equity in your home. I call the IRS, and somebody who doesn't know how to deal with the IRS would hear from them, you need to tap the equity in the home. We're not going to consider anything else. You just have to do it. An inexperienced, let's say your local accountant who says, "Oh yeah, no problem, I can do it. I'll handle this for you." They come back to you and say, "Gosh, Gary, they won't play ball. They're demanding you pull the equity out of your home." And you say, "Well, I can't get lending. I can't prove that I can pay this back." And they say, "Sorry, then I guess you have to sell your home." We're seeing this over and over and over again right now in the industry because all of these accountants and CPAs are being taught to be everything to your client. They come to you for financial advisement. You may not know a lot, but they're training you to say, I can handle that for you. Same thing with tax debt. No problem. Pay me and I'll handle it for you. Well, they don't have the experience to know, no, you can't force them out of their home. We can apply for lending, but we're going to get denied. And the reason why we're going to get denied is because I can prove that my client can't afford to pay more on a mortgage, on a second mortgage or a HELOC or anything else you have it in your harebrained idea that they should do. So no, sorry, we're uncollectible. Let's go through the numbers again. And there's that's where the value comes in dealing with somebody like me. I've handled thousands of cases. I know at every point of the game, so to speak, what our options are, how far to push, how far not to push, and what we can really get done from the get-go. So,
What's the difference between, say, you owe 50,000 bucks
mhm,
and you call in, you work out a payment plan. Dude, they're going to want you to pay 500 bucks a month for the rest of your life, and then they want your firstborn to pay it, and then they want your grandson to pay it. And I'm like, "Cool. Better than trying to come up with 50,000. I'll pay the 500, right?"
right.
What's the difference between that and saying, "Listen, I don't have anything. I don't even I can't even pay you 500 bucks a month. Will they take $5,000 and I'll borrow it from Granny and just give you 5,000 and you wipe off the 50 in an offer and compromise?" So what's the difference between
Sure.
the odds of getting a payment plan and the odds of getting an offer and compromise?
If we can prove that within the collection statute, the time they have to collect on the debt, if we can prove you don't have the means to do it, they will consider a negotiation on the debt, the settlement, the offer and compromise. But they are not for the weak of heart. I will tell you, I mean, we've had clients where it took a year and a half from start to finish to get an offer and compromise negotiated. And it's just because there's this fluid aspect to people's income, right? Like, let's say you submit an offer and compromise, you're making 60,000 a year, your wife works part-time, makes 12. You've got two kids, they're in public school, you're barely making ends meet, but you're figuring it out. We look at $150,000 debt from a business that you had had prior that went belly up. Okay. We submit an offer and compromise because right now you qualify. You can't afford to pay the debt back in full. Given your allowable expenses that the IRS has, and there's charts and stuff all over the IRS website. But based on that, yeah, you're right. You don't have any way to pay more than $25 a month, let's say. And we calculate it out and we offer a couple $100 to the IRS to settle this $150,000 debt you have. They will accept it if at the time you submit it, it's true. And at the time that an examiner finally gets assigned, which could be 6 months, 6 to 8 months, they'll say, okay, send us updated financials. We want updated bank statements, credit card statements, utilities, everything. We send it to them and they say, we are looking at your bank statement and we saw that you have a gambling problem. You've been taking money out at the Saratoga casino and we're seeing money coming out, money coming in. Yeah, but I never won anything. But that money that you gambled with, we're going to add that to the settlement because you shouldn't have done it, right?
Hmm.
If you can say, hey, look, I'm paying my necessary expenses, and I simply, after that is tended to, and I'm not talking going out to dinner every week, 2 or 3 times a week, and going on vacation twice a year with your kids and sending your kids to private school, that's not allowed. But if you show, hey, I am being diligent with my finances, and after I tend to everything needed for our health and welfare, I have nothing to give you, they'll settle it. But believe me, they'll look at everything like a colonoscopy. They'll look at everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy the colonoscopy, but that's just a whole nother matter. So you're obviously come across very nice, but I know
Thank you.
inside you must be just a demon from hell, which is exactly what somebody wants. And I mean that in
Yeah.
all loving and kindness, in all
I
goodness and loving.
graciously accept it. That's okay.
It's
I've
like
got a
when you
lion
hire
in
an
me.
attorney, you don't
Yeah.
want Mr. Nice Guy. You
No.
want a guy that just snarls and starts eating his half-eaten child. So here's my question. So having the best at something is always worth the money, right? It's always worth paying for the best of something because, like you said, I get Louis the Liar to defend me in this thing. I'm screwed. I was
Yeah.
already screwed when I hired him. So so it takes money to help yourself get through the process of the IRS. It just takes money.
Right. Right.
So I'm not going to ask you about fees and stuff like that because none of my business. And I know it's got to be case by case. But I do want to ask about the IRS receives a letter from you or a power of attorney from you that says, "Hey, I am now representing Jimmy."
Hmm.
In this IRS case, we're going to help walk him through his back taxes. Does the IRS go, wait a minute, if he has money to pay you, why doesn't he just give that money to us? Or do they
Mm.
like you guys or do they not like you guys?
So as a whole, like for me, they like when I'm involved because they know that I know the rules of the game, right? I used to work in an office with a bunch of different people who were credentialed professionals who could do this work. Attorneys, CPAs, EAs, that's who can handle this level of work and represent clients before the IRS for tax debt. Inevitably, the people who were blustery jerks didn't get a lot of cooperation when they were dealing with the IRS. Meanwhile, I always approach it with a very matter of fact, but hey, we're working on a solution to a problem that's going to benefit everybody, right? I'm very fair, I'm very friendly. But you better know I know the rules and I know how far I can push you and how far I can't. But there were guys in the office that I worked with that were attorneys, and they will tell this agent what they will accept, and they better make this happen or else, right? And inevitably, the revenue officer would be like, I don't know what kind of person this guy thinks I am, but buddy, I'm going to put you through extra hoops because you're just a jerk.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I always what I've always found is it's best to handle these situations with honey, but keep that bottle of vinegar right next to you. And if you need it, pull it out. I have no problem with it. But I will tell you, I get a lot further with that philosophy in representing my clients versus going in and trying to be a complete a-hole to these people.
You know, it's as almost impossible as this is to believe, because when you look at people who take a job as a collection agent,
Mm,
you know they basically are the devil. But there are actually people in the IRS, it might be like 1 to 2%, that are actual people that work for the IRS,
yeah.
and they're just like everybody else. I mean, they have families, it's their job. They don't want to get yelled at and beat up every day. I mean, they don't want to sit there and, I mean, they don't like making these calls and doing this as
Mm-mm.
much as it. But then you have the 98% of them that love every second of the pain they put you through. Otherwise, you couldn't do that job.
Yeah.
You've been so gracious with your time. This hour just flew. I shouldn't have been so silly early because this really
No,
is an
you're
important thing.
good. This is a great conversation. I love it, Gary.
So, but I just have two more questions if I may. You
Okay,
got two more
yeah,
stacks? Okay.
yeah, do it.
Okay, so we get the love letters, we get the calls. We call Morgan. Morgan says you got to do a power of attorney with me. We're going to send that into the IRS and the state, whoever you're behind on. I'm going to start negotiating on your behalf, and then once we get into the process, I'm going to be able to find out what you actually owe, what's
Hmm.
falling off in 10 years or what's not. And then at that point, we're going to be able to come up with a fee, that we're going to need to collect in order to
Right.
represent you, and then that fee's what based on what's owed and how long it looks like the case is going to be. I'd imagine.
Yeah,
Or something.
it's all based on time.
Yeah.
Based on my experience in a similar situation, using the offer and compromise. How much time can I anticipate we're going to need to spend on it?
Mhm. So so that people can leave here feeling okay. I feel better. Morgan has helped me out. Um, I mean, at what point should people turn to Morgan? I mean, at what point? I mean, the first couple letters, is it if you're 2 years back? Is the amount you money the owe? I mean, what traditionally is a time when it's important to bring Morgan into the situation with the IRS?
I would say as soon as possible. And the reason is every day that you have a debt sitting there and it's not addressed, it's accruing more in penalties and interest. And there's points where people say, okay, you know what? I am so stressed out right now with my company. We're focusing on a big job. I know I need to handle this, but I need another 30 days. That's understandable. Just hold yourself to the 30 days. Don't be your own worst enemy by shoving it at the back of the drawer and trying to ignore it because it's just going to sit in the back of your head the whole time. And I have had every single client who works with us at some point say, before I started working with you, I couldn't sleep. It was constantly there. I was ignoring it, but it was constantly there. As soon as I brought you on, I felt this big sense of relief because we always say, I'm going to get you through this. I'm going to take you by the hand. You have to follow my lead if you want the results that I can get you. I'm going to do all the charging. I'm going to be outlining the path and forging us forward. Just keep hold of my hand, stay in contact with us. If I ask you for documentation, get it to me right away because that's the tool I need to do my job. As long as clients will do that and kind of put themselves in our hands, we take over all the worry, we take over all the planning, all the actions, and we keep you informed along the way and say, okay, I called the IRS today. Here's what's happening. Here are the two options we have for moving forward. Let's sit down and talk about them. Here's the pros and the cons of option A. Here's the pros and cons of option B. Here's what I would recommend, but you're empowered to make decisions with your case. Tell me what you think. What questions do you have? Let's go through it all.
Yeah, and there is a reason why that looks like you're sitting in a rainbow of cornucopia of goodness behind you, because it really is. And I don't want to overstate this. I mean, my first wife passed from cancer. I've
Hmm.
had cancer. I've had a lot of friends with cancer, and the thing we always say is keep getting checked. Go to your doctor. If something doesn't seem right, I found a little lump. I went in right away and beat the crap out of my doctors, and they gave me every excuse for 9 months why it wasn't needed to be biopsied and looked at. And of course, when they finally did, oh, you got cancer. I'm like, dude, yeah, I know. I
I've
told you
been
that nine
telling
months
you
ago.
that. Right,
Right.
right.
So cancer maybe is, of course, life threatening and not, but it's the same thing. The longer you wait on something, trust me, it doesn't get better. Whether it's
No,
an owie, whether it's you think you've got something wrong with you, or whether it's dealing with the IRS, right? I mean, nothing gets better waiting on it when you know something's wrong and you've got a
right.
problem, right? So that's why you got to reach out to Morgan right away. But so your book is called Tax Debt Rule Number One. There's always a solution. Where can we find your book?
Amazon, baby.
Amazon, of
Amazon.
course.
I
Everything's on
know.
Amazon.
Right, right.
So I opened with my one question, and I lied
Mhm.
because I'm like Louis the liar. I said I had only one question, but I do have a second question, and it
Okay.
doesn't even have to be about taxes. It doesn't have to be what you're doing. It could be about pretty much anything you want, but it can be about taxes and what you do. But so I always ask people as we round up the podcast, we as we leave, if there is a thought that you had for people, or a saying that was always important to you, or if there's something to Morgan Q. Anderson that just meant something to her that you'd like to leave us with, Morgan, what would that one thought be?
Hmm. One of my favorite quotes. There are 7 days in the week, and someday is not one of them.
Wow.
Zing! How you like that
Boom.
one?
Wait a minute. And that's why she has a rainbow of happiness behind her, because she brings shit like that right there. That's what I'm talking about. But
Mic
it's
drop.
true. It's true. One
It
day,
is.
mic drop. Mic drop. Yeah, so, do it now.
Hmm.
Do it now. Take care of
Yeah.
it now. Don't put stuff off. And especially, I've dealt with the IRS. I when my wife passed, and just she always took care of taxes, and just stuff hit the fan, and I just said, I'm not going to do them anymore. She's dead. I know she knew what she was doing, and I don't like Louis the liar that much, anyways, and so I'm not gonna. And then it was like, oh crap! But when I finally reached out and called them, they were actually very kind. They
Yeah.
worked with me on a lot of stuff, got it taken care of, right? But if it gets to the point where you can't call on your own and you don't have the time, or it's just gone a little bit too far, you've got to call someone like you, Morgan. And I'm really grateful for your time. So how can people reach you? Where can people reach Morgan Q. Anderson?
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a free webinar. If people have a tax debt situation, they don't know where to start, this is the perfect place. Before you hire anybody, before you try to figure out if you can DIY it yourself or not, I'll get you that link and you can put it in the call notes, and we'll get a coupon code if people decide they want to DIY it. There's a master class that the webinar will lead them to, and we'll get a coupon code for you
That's
for your
awesome.
podcast.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. So we'll make sure we get all that info from you. We'll put it
perfect.
in the podcast. So when it goes on, the Facebook and the YouTube and the Spotify and all that stuff, they'll see it, and they'll be
Great.
able to find you, and then they'll be able to sleep at night because they
Yes.
know they've got someone protecting them and working with them, and you don't have to sit on hold for 97 hours on the phone listening to music about that's just putting us to death. So this
Exactly.
everybody, you have been healed and saved, protected by Morgan Q. Anderson. We're going to put her notes on there about the book, Tax Step Rule Number One. There's always a solution. We're going to link her website. You can see all the information about her, and we'll be
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Anytime anybody has a question too, our website has my direct line and email address on it. Feel free to reach out.
You're awesome. Thank you so much,
You're
Morgan. All right, guys,
awesome.
this was another episode. It was silly. We had fun, but it's a really important thing. I mean,
Yeah.
really got to take care of your taxes, man, because it's just not fun when it gets out of control. Morgan's going to help you. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you, Morgan, for being our guest.
Thanks, Gary. It's been so fun. It really
Yay.
has. I hope everybody learned something and we kind of demystified the IRS and taxes.
And we did it in a not too painful way,
Yeah,
which was
hopefully
fun.
not.
All right, guys. I'll see you later. Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.